looks like the grind. Don't be stopping, but it's worth it, and at least what I do. So
Yeah.
it's cool.
And if I got this correct, like Build Nigeria, it's an NGO that serves like pre-college Nigerian students, connects them to opportunity or collegiate opportunities around the world.
Yeah, so we focus on high achieving low income students. So, and oddly enough, I was doing an interview just before I got to this. But like, yeah, the kind of students who typically can't afford to go to school even in Nigeria, like they've struggled with like paying school fees for even just secondary school and things like that. But they're highly intelligent. Like, I think something that I recognized a long time ago is that there were a lot of Nigerians that could be in my seat and do so much better than I do because they work a lot harder. They're a lot smarter. And so it's like these people deserve just as much of an opportunity as I got for all the privilege I have behind me. So it's definitely worth serving the correct people and with the goal of building a community of highly educated, like-minded people who ultimately want to go back and develop the country. And for us, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to live in Nigeria. A huge part of like the rise of India in the last like 20 years was diaspora and like sending back funds and their knowledge from the institutions they went to here. So we're very much focused on the same kind of building the country back up by changing the mindset. Japa culture will take a lot to end, but starting there is pretty important. So yeah.
That's an amazing initiative. I think I heard about it when probably around the time that I met you, like sophomore year or so.
Where that was literally when we were starting. Like sophomore year, I remember I think I was living in a house in Maryland with one of my old friends because like COVID was COVIDing. No, it really was. And we're like, why pay rent when we can just be here together and chill? And like I hopped on a call with one of the co-founders, and she went to my middle school. And back in middle school, we'd always be like, oh my gosh, these are the problems of Nigeria. But we also acknowledge that one thing about Nigerians is like we like to talk about our problems, but we don't like to solve them. We are never taking action. And so it was really that sophomore fall semester that we were like, what can we do? And we realized like these are the spaces that we're in, and technically we've done pretty well getting into these spaces, and so we can get other people into these spaces as well. So yeah, so it's gone where it's gone, and it's fun. I had to wake up at 6 a.m. for an interview this morning, guys. So if I look kind of shady, that's why I'm doing the good work.
Yeah, putting in those hard hours pay off. I'm sure it has paid off.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. You good?
Without a doubt. Our first cohort, we have 3 students going into school, 2 in the US, 1 in Rwanda. And yeah, because we focus like across the board, some of the best institutions in the world. We don't have to want to come to the US only. The one in Rwanda was very specifically, she wanted to focus on connecting Africa and African institutions. And so hence Rwanda, a lot of good innovation going on there right now. So she chose there. And then one of our students is going to Dartmouth starting in the fall. And he's literally like, would be happy with me saying this. Like he comes from an orphanage. Like he's an orphan and he lives in an orphanage. And so sometimes, we keep pushing at build and we're on to the next thing. But when we really sit down and look back at like what we've achieved, it's like, whoa, we actually just changed the trajectory of someone's life. And that's really cool for us as people, but also like it just shows how much we can do from wherever we are in the corners of our world. Because a lot of how we got here was, Nigerians at Penn supported us. They were part of our fundraise. They a bunch of schools from across like America, like their various Pan-African associations or Nigerian associations were like part of the fundraising for us and a lot of the connections that we have. So it's definitely like a full process and everyone can get involved in some little way, which is why we're like, look, the diaspora, even us as college students can do so much with what we've been given so far. So it's really cool. So yeah.
I mean, where do you see in the next 5 years?
What I see in the next 5 years? Do you mean me or build?
Like, where do you see build?
Okay, great. So one of the things we're also doing right now is really looking at the mission and thinking, how far do we want to go? In the sense of, what is the real issue that we want to solve? Is it just education access? Is it education infrastructure in the country itself? And that means turning from, okay, we've built this cohort of people. We're going to continue to have cohorts, have alumni who ultimately will get the influence and the knowledge to come back and reshape policy, infrastructure, all these things. Where in the process do we want to like stop, quote unquote, even though like ideally we'd just change the whole country. And so that's what we're really examining right now. And so I'll get back to you when we figure that one out, how far we want to solve the issue. But structurally in about 5 years, we see Build having its cohort program, also having the junior prep program, so getting in with kids earlier, because a lot of these issues are just people not understanding their opportunities. Because, right, a lot of people can actually just get up and realize, okay, I'm going to apply to a school in the States, but they don't. Lots of people who are like, maybe particularly underprivileged, don't even know I can get full scholarship to a school in America, even though I'm an international student. Some people just do not know that. And that's all we're doing for these kids, honestly. We're just paying for their entire process. They get full scholarship and they go to school. Everyone is on a full ride.
Sorry, just to interject.
Yeah.
Is that just based on their financial status, or do you guys like advocate for them?
So it's their financial status, and obviously like the service that Bill provides on the other side to admissions officers is verification. So when we talked to a bunch of admission officers before we actually started our program, and there's the big thing they were like is, look, we'd love to take Nigerian students. In fact, many of these schools have quotas on the kind of like students they need to be taking. Yeah. The issue is we see applications and we can't trust any of this information. Like, we don't know that these all A's are really A's. We don't know that like this is actually their financial background, etc. And so a lot of what we do is that verification. We work one-to-one with students, their teachers, their families, to be able to provide that verification to admissions officers in the end that, look, if they have the build stamp, they are what they say they are, and all these credentials and their status are very correct. Guys, I'm sorry to make this so like professional,
that's impressive.
but that's ultimately like the benefit we do. So ideally in 5 years, we'd have the cohort program still running, junior prep ahead of time to be like, guys, these are the possible opportunities you could have in the future, both careers in Nigeria and also potential opportunities beyond. And then an edtech platform, which would be geared towards students. So any self-starter doesn't need to go into the build cohort and have one-on-one mentorship. They can follow along online, kind of like you do like GMAT prep in one of these paid courses, and realize, okay, this is all I need to do as a Nigerian to get to this spot in whatever school. And then similarly on the other side for admissions counselors in Nigeria and guidance counselors to be like, this is training for them so they know how to support their students. So yeah, we have lofty goals, and we'll see where the future takes us, but always be building is what we say. So
it's a nice play on words. Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, guys, I'm going to tell you fun things now so that you feel easier. so you can take soft life, you can chill.
Yeah, we weren't trying to get too corporate, but like, so I was selfishly interested in hearing you talk about it because cool. I feel like it's a really cool thing. Whenever people that I know on this podcast have started like entrepreneurial related stuff or nonprofits, things of that nature, I know it sounds formal, but I always ask them about that because I'm genuinely curious.
And we love that you asked. Every talking opportunity is both promo and a chance to like honestly like iterate on like how we're thinking about things, because every time you talk about it, you have to really think about it. So it's really cool.
Tap in with Build Nigeria. Links is gonna be in the description. So y'all know what to do. But tell me about living in Nigeria, because I have a lot of Nigerian friends at Penn, and a lot of us are like me in the sense that we're born in America, we're born in a certain country, and then our parents are from Nigeria, but we didn't grow up in Nigeria.
Right.
But you're one of the few people who actually did grow up in Nigeria. So what was that experience like? And as a follow-up question, how do you feel you relate to like your Nigerian friends born diaspora? I mean, you were technically born diaspora, but not really. Yeah,
like I didn't live here. It's a very different experience when you're built here, when you're like grew up here versus like, you know, just having a passport that makes life easier. Growing up in Nigeria, I think growing up in Nigeria it's a key thing that will draw you back, in my opinion, because as annoying as it is that, you know, Nigeria has all these infrastructural issues, anytime someone asks me, oh, where do you want to live in the future, I'm like, honestly, sure, I'm going to work in America for a few years, maybe pad my pockets a little bit, but I want to get back to Nigeria. And it's something about, you know, growing up in the culture, the nature of the people, you know, even just the primary school experience is very different from going to like, elementary school here. And so it's definitely something that will keep drawing you back if you had that experience. So many people I know are like, look, I did Japa, I've left, but I want to go back. I don't like this America, it's cold, there's this, there's that. Even though there's infrastructure, I always say, give me infrastructure of England or America plus the culture of Nigeria and I'll be back home. So yeah, growing up was definitely fun. Like I got to leave a lot to like see my cousins here. So I think the main difference between like them and me is like definitely like those little habitual things, right? If the reality is, if you grew up in Nigeria, telling somebody you're an idiot is a light, playful thing. It's not necessarily an insult, but don't come. This is also a part of like the socializing we do for our students before they come here. Yeah. There are little things you cannot do here without actual consequences and without like, you know, it meaning something different. Yeah. So the culture is very different. The vibe is very different. And I think I went all the way up to secondary school And the hustle is also different there depending on the type of secondary school you went to. I went to the type of secondary school where punishment was, okay, you're coming to school on Saturday to scrub the floors. It wasn't, what is detention? Now you're coming for corporal punishment. So like, yeah, and like, it sounds like terrible, but these are things you look back on and like, honestly, like, especially with the people that you went to school with, bond you over these very silly memories when you're an adult. Like, I know so many, like, with my siblings and my parents, they will talk about those times. And that's not to say like you go to high school here and you don't have like things that bond you, but it's just a very different kind of like mutual experience. It's kind of like sometimes like, okay, shout out to the frats. I don't know how you'll really validate this, but it's kind of how sometimes frats talk about like pledging, like it really binds like a class together. It's kind of like that kind of experience, and it's very fun, and it really creates like a cultural base for a lot of people, even when they find themselves in America or England later on and they never knew each other here or know each other.